We are, Madam Chair.
Great. That's
Sorry.
wonderful. This is Chair Catherine Harrington. I'm seated with a full complement of district commissioners. Commissioner Roy Rogers, Commissioner Nafisa Fai, Commissioner Pam Treese, and Commissioner Jerry Willey. We do have an executive session. Looks like it's only for 30 minutes. So it says 9:10, but only 30 minutes. So is it okay if we don't start that till 9:15 or 9:20 in case we need it?
Yeah, it's a process.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, we do have at least three meaty topics this afternoon. So for those of us who are already tanking up on caffeine, we may have to get some more at lunchtime. So we make it through all those good topics in addition to board communication later. So we have our Housing Authority Board of Directors meeting after this. Did anyone have any questions on that for staff before we go to that? Okay. I think we probably need to check in on the formal agenda. If we could, Ms. Angie, have Stephen Roberts come up. We have received an additional letter from the city of Tigard. You may recall that for your October 24th meeting, you had a memo from them on like the 23rd from the mayor, and we received another one on through at least, well, November 30th, in addition to all the other letters that were in the supplemental packet that Clerk Moss sent us yesterday afternoon. And all of this is with regard to, sorry, my paper clip's in the way. Proposed ordinance 882 engrossed version B to amend the transportation system plan element of the comprehensive plan relating to the extension of Tile Flat Road. So I'll kick things off. I have a question about the segments, the presentation, which I haven't started up my laptop, so I can't tell you what page it's on. Oh, yes, I can, because I printed it for myself. On page 9, you have proposed refinement areas. So I'd sent our staff a question by email. I don't know if that was Friday or Sunday. But I was wondering about removing the 2 hash line areas. And then continuing to move forward with circulation within the River Terrace 2.0 planning area. But then in reading the memo, I thought, well, wait a second. Does this ordinance dictate the form of circulation within the planning area that's on page 10? So I thought I would inquire about that now versus waiting until the meeting and then just voting no on the whole thing.
Okay.
So that's why I was inquiring about a little bit more time. And I don't know if other commissioners have any questions or not. So that's the big one for me.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for raising it now too. We appreciate that. So I think what I would say if we're looking at slide 9 in the presentation, I think the one that has the green colors on the map with the crosshatch areas for the refinements. So the central portion that's in the middle of the page, that is a proposed corridor. That would be a road or a network of connected roads within the city's urban expansion area. So part of that graphic that you see then on slide 10, you'll see those gray areas sort of reflect those crosshatched areas on the prior map. So there is a significant portion of the proposed future roadway network that would be located within that existing urban area. And then the two additional areas, one to the west called the Tile Flat Road Extension area, that is currently a rural area outside or not designated as a rural or urban reserve. And then the same for the area, the Mountainside Way Southern Extension. A portion of that's within the UGB, but a portion is outside as well, also rural and designated. And so I'm not sure if I understood exactly the question, but I think the majority of the work that's proposed and the more, I would say, urgent issue is really addressing the need for connectivity within the urban planning area. There are 4,500 dwelling units coming, and so we think it's really essential that now's the time to plan for the infrastructure that would be needed to help support that and create a community that's connected both internally but also with the things around it.
Well, I get that. But I think it's a bit of a reach to have to include the rural undesignated and in the Tile Flat extension, and then the non-colored hatch part, rural undesignated to the south. So before seeing this last letter and having a phone call from the mayor late yesterday, I thought, okay, well, I could go with a modified ordinance that just focuses on the county and the city working on the planning for this new UGB area, mindful of the fact that for an area that large, some type of corridor is going to be needed, not necessarily a principal arterial or an arterial.
No,
right?
no, that's not the plan.
Like a 5-lane Murray Boulevard going through. And I think we do, I volunteered to coordinate a meeting of yourself, myself, and the mayor.
Okay.
And maybe other staff as well to try and work on the relationship for planning that area. But I don't see myself at this juncture working on the future expand undesignated areas, especially in light of how far behind we are in transportation funding for areas that are already in the UGB. So here, the green area, the urban expansion area, yes, very much we have to work on that. So.
Yeah, and I guess I would just submit that the planning that happens within the urban area now starts to really have implications for what happens in those other areas. So again, we're not proposing to adopt specific roadway alignments at this time, really just to further the study. And I would just suggest that I think obviously we have a short-term financing challenge ahead of us, but I think it would be important for us to continue to think about that 20+ year horizon that we're planning for in our transportation system plan. So we have a number of things in our plan that probably date back to the 80s that still need to be funded and constructed. So I would suggest that we just think about that long-term future. And so this is really meant to be, I think, more of a transparency measure. There's an identified need. We want to make sure that the public, the property owners, adjacent interested parties just have the awareness that there's a need that's been identified there that needs to be further explored at some point in the future. And at this point, I know it's challenging. We don't know exactly when that future date is, and so we don't have a lot of certainty around it. My sense is that it isn't a near-term sort of immediate thing, but it's also, having it designated simply retains the flexibility to address the issue when the need is present.
I understand that. That's what you've posited in prior presentations as well. I'm also reminded that these areas are not in any urban growth boundary or in an urban reserve for that matter. And this board has chosen to take such corridor plans for areas that have long time been in the urban growth boundary and vote against them as well. And so why should it really influenced me with regard to consideration of these areas that are not within those UGB or urban reserve areas. So
I would just add one note. The other purpose of a refinement area in our transportation system plan is a flag to our development review planners that something could change in this particular area. We could have applications for development on those rural parcels. Things like schools, churches can develop in those areas despite the fact that they're outside the urban growth boundary, as well as certain types of agricultural activities. So if a development application were to come in, this would be a flag to our development review planners that this is an area that at some point may come into the urban growth boundary. We want to make sure that we are not precluding a connected transportation system at some point in the future. So just to note that there's another reason for
30,
refinement
40
areas.
years out.
Well, I think if I'm hearing you correctly, Catherine, looking at that 3 proposed refinement areas, you're advocating only for the middle one to do the planning for the urban expansion area in the hatched green boxes. Is that what you're recommending?
Do the work with all the green.
But not,
I'm not trying to draw the form of the hatch part in the green either.
no, I understand that, but then you're saying we don't need to do the Tile Flat Road extension because it's rural undesignated, and we don't need to do the mountainside southern portion of that, just the middle one. Is that what you're
Well,
advocating?
we can't take the whole thing out because this box is also referring to the green parts here. So it's this hatch mark,
But primarily you're excluding the
Yes.
Tile Flat Road.
the gray hatch mark.
Right. Well, from my standpoint, that would be like building roads to nowhere. Because my focus on this has been that we have to have some sort of ingress and egress to this very large 4,500 unit expansion area. And if we do not provide opportunity for planning now, we won't get it done 20 years from now or 10 years from now when it will need to be done, because we can't just have one road in and one road out of that area.
Well, it won't, right? Because if you look at the middle picture, there is sufficient access up to Shoals Ferry Road that will be designed. Also access through existing River Terrace 1 and also access to Roy Rogers Road, all from that green that exists.
I don't see the access to Shoals Ferry from.
The roadway,
Land.
yeah, maybe slide 10 might be
Yeah.
a better view of the city's concept plan. So there are proposed connections to Shoals
Oh, I
Ferry
see.
Road and to
No,
Roy Rogers
that's just
Road.
a concept plan.
I guess my sense is I don't like to shortcut opportunities. I mean, we're not saying this will be done. We're saying we're going to leave the door open for options. And that would be my preference.
Doesn't say it's never going to be open in the future either.
These things have a way, especially land use items, have a way of the doors getting closed and they stay closed.
Well, we are talking about undesignated areas that are rural zoned.
Discussing that now or later?
I just wanted to take advantage of asking staff questions. I'd sent them an email previously. And
I just make one comment and I'll make it out there. Fortunately, I can't get in. It says somebody's trying to hack this system through. I've got a very secure system at my office and use. Anyway, I applaud you for looking. I don't know if if that area is the right one either. I haven't spent the time, talked a little bit with the mayor, and I know their position is don't run it through our town, and I get that. I also remember when Craig was first around this area and before Metro, and we said, gee, nobody wants the jails. And I remember I got appointed by Bonnie Hayes to go look at sites for jails. I remember that we couldn't site garbage facilities. We couldn't do a lot of things. It's difficult making the hard decisions. And I've always believed, just from my point, and I'll make it out there, I don't represent just the people that are here today. I represent the unborn who coming here, are going to be born here. I grew up in Portland. I was raised there, and it couldn't even, you couldn't, where I was born and raised, you would not recognize it today from what it was. So things change. And so I applaud you in doing the planning with not only the city of King City, with their extensive growth, to Sherwood starting to come out on that, where Rochester, to the west, I guess, where it was, in River Terrace. I feel it unfortunate that we shouldn't say, let's fix all of this. I'm not saying that particular route, but some route, long before we proved all of that stuff. So I just want to say to staff, for me, I don't, with everybody else, but I applaud you for looking. You're doing the hard work that we're supposed to do. We're supposed to take a long view, 40, 50 years for somebody sitting out there, like 40 years, that goes pretty fast. It's hard to get land once it's gone and develop. So I just want you to think, I don't know if I'm for 882. I don't know that that's the right answer, but I'm for planning, for looking before we get too far. So thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions that you want to ask at this juncture? Yeah, it's not required. All righty. Thank you very much for being here. Okay, well then, were there any other items from today's agenda that people wanted to check in on? Part of our formal agenda check-in? I'm not aware of any. So just yeah, no, not this week. Yeah. So, okay, great. Then we'll move on to our next work session item, which is an executive session. So we need a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to ORS 192.660 sub 2 sub F for the purposes of discussing and reviewing exempt records. So
Second.
all those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries. We are hereby in executive session.